All right, guys, we just started the recording. Looks like we've got a decent number of folks here. We're going to go ahead and kick off and get moving. And then plan is to open up for anybody online. If there's anything that you guys want to discuss after the things that we cover today or any other topics that you want to bring up. Can you guys see this okay? Anybody?
Yes.
So just a couple of updates that I wanted to do with everybody, some department updates. So we've got some specific sheets that we have ordered, different color, bigger size to fit the bariatric bed. I anticipate those will be coming in next week. When we do receive those, the EBS team is going to keep those sheets back in EBS. They're not going to put them into circulation on the laundry cart, just because we want to be able to keep them isolated so they don't get used for any other purpose. We're only purchasing a total of 24 sheets. If we had a patient here and we were changing the sheets on that bed twice a day, with 24 sheets, it would give us 12 days of sheets to use. And of course, they're going to be getting washed and whatnot in the meantime. We're ordering like a kind of a bluish color. I don't know if anybody can see Nona's cup over there, kind of that color. That way they stand out in comparison to the kind of bone white sheets that we have for the regular beds. Now, key thing, I don't believe these are going to be fitted sheets. They're going to be flat sheets, but they are going to be large enough that they can fold underneath. Part of the reason we're getting the flat sheet version is that bed has multiple formats that it can be set up in. You can widen both sides, you can widen a single side, plus you can lengthen the bed. So if you just have a patient that's 6'6", 6'8", super tall, we can utilize that bed instead of doing the historical, just take the footboard off. We can actually place them in that bed instead, and it will extend like an additional 6 to 8 inches on the foot of it. And with those specific pairs of sheets, we'll be able to accommodate any kind of setup that bariatric bed has. Once those sheets come in, if we've got a patient that's in one of those beds and we're going to need those sheets, during the daytime, we'll just call over to EBS and let them know, hey, we need some sheets for the bariatric bed. Otherwise, I'll talk with Ed today to figure out if it's in the middle of the night, where he's going to be keeping those at so we can still get to them. We're just trying to do the best we can to keep them sequestered so that they don't get, used up and then we don't have any ready to go. Signature pads. We were having more issues with signature pads this week. I did have Chris come over. He's installed more signature pads on the wows. So every wow in the department should have a signature pad on it now. If you come across one that does not, I need to know which one it is so that way we can get one added. It is possible that when he was installing signature pads that he may have ran out of signature pads, and that might be why one is still missing, one or two are still missing. But still, if you find one that does not have a signature pad on it, write down the number for that computer. It should be like MS Wow, and then the number. Drop that on a sticky note or a piece of paper in my box, and then that way I can let the IT team know so they can come over and get those signature pads replaced. And then I think that's where we're at on those. So we should have a signature pad for every wow. There is a new printer that has been added to both our department. It's right next to the current printer on MedSurg, the one that's right behind where the ward clerk sits. And then there's also one in the ICU. These are called Zebra printers. These are label printers. Specifically, they are collection label printers. So when we make the transition to Meditech, When a physician places an order to collect something, majority of orders, if it's a blood or if it's a blood culture, if it's something that is requiring or typically requiring lab to collect, as we currently have set up, those labels will only print in the lab. Okay. Now, if a UDS is ordered, or a urine microanalysis is ordered, or a stool sample collection, or a sputum culture, something that typically nursing is going to collect, those labels will print at the Zebra printer depending on where the patient's location is. So if they are located in med-surg, they'll print off on that Zebra printer in med-surg, versus if they're in ICU, it'll print off back there. And effectively, those labels will replace the old school way of doing things where you just get a patient sticker and you throw a patient sticker on the sample, and then you're writing in, your initials, the collection time, where did you get it from. So it has everything that it needs on it. It has the type of lab that's going to be run. It has the patient's name and account information on there. It's got a barcode to be able to scan by lab. And then it does have space on it for you to be able to write the actual collection time and some initials. As far as, the collection site or other information, everything else is going to be included in that tag. There will be some workflow process that we'll have to talk through with those labels, because obviously, just because the physician puts the order in for a urine collection right now doesn't mean that the patient has urinated or that their Foley output isn't enough to collect it right now. And, you've got this physical item, a sticker that you're now carrying with you that you don't want to lose, right? And until you're able to collect that sample. So some of this is going to be individual personal workflows. So figuring out what you guys feel is best as far as, do I leave it attached or right by the label printer? Do I grab it and stick it on my clipboard? Do I grab it and immediately put it on the container that I'm going to be collecting the sample into? So we'll suss that out a little bit more once we get to the point where we're introducing that. But those printers have been installed. They're ready to go. They've been tested. They will function once we go live with Meditech, and the purpose is to print out those. They're basically called pre-collection labels. Yesterday, we ran into a situation where we had an individual who was hearing impaired and needed an ASL interpreter. And this didn't happen in the med surg department. We didn't have a patient that was needing this. But of course I got pulled in because folks were trying to figure out, okay, where, do we have a computer? Do we have a laptop? Do we have an iPad? What do we have to be able to offer ASL interpretation for this patient? And what we ended up finding out, and there is now an app that has been installed on the MedSurg cell phone as well as the ER cell phone. Inside that app is all of the language services that the company that we're contracted with for language line services. There's probably close to 100 different languages in there, including ASL. The screen is very small, so using the phone to do interpretation for someone that's communicating in a different language on the cell phone, totally applicable. That would work well. But of course, if you're trying to use it for a hearing impaired person, it's way too small. And so we're looking at using either a laptop. The WOWs that we have is another option, because the WOWs that we have do have a webcam as well as speakers on them. And then we're also looking at those tablets that we've had in the department that were back from COVID time, which those tablets aren't currently being used for anything. It's a simple app. I will have to double check the name of the actual application, but it's super easy to use. You tap on it, you go in, you find the language that you need to be getting an interpreter for. And then once you've got it set up, bam, you've got everything that you need right there. So quick recap on policy for language line. I actually had somebody pop into the office yesterday and was like, hey, when should we be using this, for a patient that's, only able to speak a different language, right? And effectively what I shared, and I want to, recap with everybody here. If the person is asking for help to go to the bathroom or for a glass of water, or, you know, you're able to source out what they need. They want to brush their teeth, and you're able to source that out without needing the interpreter services. Totally okay, right? It's totally okay to make that happen. But if you're going to be doing anything nursing duty related, like giving a medication or giving any education or answering questions that the patient has about their medical care, anything where you need a trained, certified medical terminology professional to translate a complicated in-depth conversation with the patient is when you need to be using this device. That goes just the same for someone that is Spanish speaking with a Spanish only speaking patient. Unless you are certified to do interpretation services at a medical level, which there are certifications out there that you can earn, then you need to be utilizing the language line services. Yes, ma'am.
So is this going to go to the ER too? Because they're always calling us to translate for them, and I don't agree with translating because we're not certified for it.
They've got the app on their phone too. So that they've got the same exact setup that we're going to have. And basically what I'm looking at doing is grabbing, I loaned out one of those tablets to the physical therapy, occupational therapy team who are working on patient survey stuff. I don't know if they're still using it, but we've got two other ones that are sitting in the department. Basically, my game plan is to get those booted up, get that application installed on there. We'll have one. The ED will have one. It's it's historically the format that I've used at some other hospitals where the language line services was on a mobile iPad stand. So you could easily, iPad stand or Samsung tablet or what have you. So you can easily roll it into the room, get it set up, do the translation that you need. Lord forbid if you have, somebody that only speaks Czech or Japanese or, some language where you're definitely going to have a hard time even understanding that they need to go to the bathroom, right? Um, there's nothing wrong with just setting that device up in the room and leaving it there. Unless we've got multiple people in the department that are, that don't have English as a primary language, right? Um, it's totally fine to leave that tablet in there. If we've got multiple people, obviously we want to take it out so that way we can move it around. But typically we only have like one patient at a time that we would typically be using that for. So in the ED would have one set up for them as well. And that way, we're not getting called to go over and do any translation or anything like that. And like I said, if you are getting called to go do translation, it's limited to, hey, can you get me a glass of water? Or hey, I need something to eat. Or, can you get me to the bathroom? I'm totally okay with you being able to navigate those conversations with someone in Spanish. But as soon as you breach that level where now you are using nursing, you're sharing nursing knowledge or you're sharing nursing education or anything where you're using any amount of medical terminology or trying to explain a topic to somebody or explain to them that they're going to get admitted or anything like that, you need to be using the language line services. And it's a it's a big CYA thing. It is a big CYA thing because if anything were ever to come of, a patient, that comes in that's only speaks German and we don't have, maybe we have somebody here on the team that used to live in Germany many, many moons ago and is able to strike up a conversation and talk with the patient. And they take it upon themselves to educate this person on medications and all these other things. And then this person goes off and, thinks they're doing the right thing, based on how they understood how the conversation went. But maybe the dialect was off, or the words that you were using were outdated or outmoded, or they have multiple meanings. And the person took that, what you're trying to explain to them, with completely the wrong meaning. And now they've done something or not done something that, any other person that is primary English speaking, you could effectively relay to them. And, Lord forbid, an investigation opens up, they come to the hospital, they take a look at the documentation, they see that, there's not any documentation to show that language line services were used, and bam, there we go. We've got, a deficiency there, potentially some kind of a lawsuit, depending on the nature of what happened. So it's a big CYA thing. Um, Plan is to have those up and going by next week at the latest. So I'm actually putting in a work order today to get IT to install the apps on those tablets and make sure that those tablets are connected to the internet, that the batteries are good to go. I don't want us to, use a product that's half-ass put together. So if those batteries and those tablets are fried, then we'll get new ones, or we'll get something else. We'll come up with an alternative. So that way we have language line services. The number is posted in the department. Michelle, the ER director, is actually the one that kind of spearheaded this yesterday. So I fully anticipate that the expectation for her team members is the same. That when language line services are needed, that they use them, and they do have the app on their ER charge phone. So for the time being, till we get this alternative items put together. So other questions on language line services? I will find the name of the actual application. And when I send out the email, in fact, let me write this down. When I send out the email with the link to YouTube for this meeting, I will include the name, and I'll try and get a picture of what the app icon looks like. That way you guys can see which one it is. So that way it's easy to get in there and access it. Okay. So I wanted to also go over internal external threat procedure. So as some of you may be privy to, others maybe not so much. And my information on exactly what happened is severely limited. But last Friday, there was a bit of a shooting rampage, to my understanding, over closer to the IHS hospital. And their facility ended up going on lockdown. It was at one point in time reported that the flight crew that was based over there at that facility actually had some rounds fired in their direction. So of course they've had some people that are a little flustered and some PTSD from what went down, to my understanding. We also went on lockdown here at the facility. It's not something that we practice enough. It is not something that I would consider we are rock solid at being prepared for. Um, Obviously, this is a topic that oftentimes brings up more questions than answers. The biggest thing is communication, and that's kind of the target that I want to have with this part of the meeting. Not that I want to dismiss any of the questions that you may have about security or cameras or locking mechanisms on doors, or how those can be overridden by fire alarm systems, or any of that stuff. Okay, those are all valid questions. but I do ask that you save those for, you feel free to put those in the chat. I'm not going to address them today. I just want to talk strictly on the communication side as it pertains to these types of events. So if you've got a question about security or the security of the building or cameras, anything like that, feel free, put it in the chat. I will answer you back either via text message or an email. But the communication component. So anyone in that is at the hospital or at the clinics or at any of the outbuildings or at any of the clinic sites, not that we necessarily have folks that work in those areas, but let's say for whatever reason, that's where you are. You're over at PTOT and you either hear of a very credible threat potentially coming the direction of the hospital or in town, or you see a potential credible threat, somebody that's, bearing down on the facility with, a rifle and, a backpack in tow, or you're suspicious of somebody's activity, or you actually hear gunshots, any of these things, okay? You have a duty to contact whoever the most senior person is in the hospital second. First call that you need to make is 911. Always. Always, always, always. If there's something that you suspect as a potential security threat for the building, you need to call 911. That is the first call that you need to make. The first call. The second call that you should make is to get a broadcast to the rest of the hospital. Okay? So you need to be contacting the registration team that's in the fishbowl. You can dial 0. That simple on any of the phones in the hospital in order to notify them that you've called the police, they are on their way. You suspect that there's a shooter that's either in the building or in one of the outbuildings or coming to the campus or near the campus and you hear gunshots, okay? So that way they can initiate the house-wide lockdown. This is day shift or night shift. The fishbowl always has a registration team member that's located in there, okay? That way they can broadcast for the entire hospital so everybody can hear, okay? The third person you should call is whoever the most senior person is that's on site, okay? If it's in the middle of the night, the most senior person is going to be your charge nurse, okay? If you are the charge nurse, the next person that you're going to be contacting is the most senior person that is not on site, which would be me. Okay. If you can't get a hold of me, then you're calling Michelle. If you can't get a hold of Michelle, then you're getting a hold of Denise and going down. And I actually have a phone tree that has cell phone numbers, my cell phone number, Michelle's cell phone numbers, Zafair's cell phone numbers, Steve's. It's got everybody's contact information. And two things that I want to do with that tree. Number one, we are going to post a copy in the department so it's easily accessible, easy to get to, easy to pull up. And then I also want to make sure that all of the cell phone numbers that are listed on that call tree are stored in the MedSurg cell phone. So that way, if you need to contact any of those members of the team, then you are able to. Okay. So while it may seem prudent because it's a scary situation and you don't necessarily know what to do at first, just remember 911 first. You're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to get, I will tell you that right now. If you call 911 because you see a suspicious person near the campus or on the campus to report them, and they go over and it's, a homeless person that's not doing anything but loitering, the police will handle that situation. They'll probably ask them to leave the area. Not a big deal. Okay. And if the cops come back to the hospital and they're like, hey, so, this person called and said that they thought they saw a gun and, you should really talk to them. I will stand up for you guys and I'll say, listen, they saw a suspicious individual. They did the right thing. They contacted the police. Okay. So always the cops first. Then you're calling registration to let them know so that they can broadcast for a lockdown. Third person is if there's whoever the most senior person that's on site. So if it's during the daytime, you're going to be calling directly to the CEO. Okay. Most senior person is on site. And then the next would be to contact the most senior person that's off site if you didn't get in contact with the most senior person that's on site. So number 4 phone call only happens if pretty much if it's nighttime. Okay. As far as the actual process for locking down the building. Okay. So once all these phone calls have been made, okay, the next key thing to do is to ensure that entrances and exits are closed. Okay. The doors that come into med surge from, I call it hallway 1, which is that main hallway that leads, you can walk from registration down to the surgery department. So there's those 2 doors that come down hallway 3 and hallway 4. You need to make sure that those are closed. You need to make sure that your fire doors are closed and not propped, which they typically, I don't think I've ever seen them open or propped. And you need to make sure that this door that's over by the 2 bathrooms is also closed. Okay. The goal being to minimize the routes that somebody could enter the building. Okay. Beyond that, depending on the nature of the threat, that's when you resort to the videos that are covered in Fast Health, which is run, hide, fight. Okay. If there is an internal threat inside the building, okay, that means shooting starts in the lobby of the hospital and starts progressing through the hospital. Okay. Objective number 1 is to GTFO. Okay. You need to get out of the building and get as far away from the building as possible to get away. Okay. You need to defend yourself and your life first. All right. Option 2 is hide. Okay. That means a door with a manual lock, ideally, that you're getting behind. Okay. So that would be bathrooms. That would be my office if it was open. That would be the doctor's office, the case management office, any door that ideally has a manual lock. And even better if it doesn't have a window. Your final option is to fight. Okay. That is a last ditch effort. And in that situation, the goal is to harass the individual as much as humanly possible so that ideally you can get away. Anytime there is a potential for a fight, anytime there is a potential for something to go down, always remember rule 1, legs. Your legs are your most powerful part of your body. They are the most likely thing to be able to save you in the event of a fight to get away as fast as possible. If the fight can't happen, then you're not going to get hurt or that much less likely to get hurt. Okay. So, brief recap. First phone call, you see something suspicious, call 911. Get them over here. Tell them that there's a possible shooter. Okay. You need to be particularly specific when you make that phone call. Okay. Not, hey, I just see a suspicious person. I'm not really sure what they're doing. If you see a gun, you see them advancing on the hospital, you need to say that. Hey, I think there's somebody coming to shoot up the hospital. Okay. Or, hey, I hear gunshots near the hospital. They sound like they're getting closer. Okay. Number 2, call the registration team so that they can broadcast for the hospital so that everybody knows. Number 3, most senior person that's on site. Okay. If you're a charge nurse, that means that you're the charge nurse that's seeing this, or any member of the team and it's daytime, then you're contacting the CEO to let him know. Okay. If it's nighttime, it's first call should be to me. If I don't answer, then you're going through that call tree and going up. So then you're contacting Steve or Z directly. Questions about communication? Okay. There will be I will include the phone tree, the image of the phone tree in the email that I send out with the video. I will get a copy printed and posted in the department. And I'm also going to attach the policy as it pertains to internal, external threat as well. Okay. This one's a quick one. Nothing's changed. We're still going live 10/1 with Meditech. And there hasn't been any talks of pushing that date back. That is when we are going live. We will be going live 10/1. There will be additional training opportunities coming up, probably the last week of this month or the first week of September. Things are really shaping up with this program. There is a faint possibility we will see that we end up with some mobile devices. And said mobile devices, you can do medication administration, you can do documentation, you can review the chart all on basically something the size of a cell phone. So that being said, the purpose behind bringing those devices on, why they're looking at bringing those devices to the organization, is because they want us to be able to use them for scanning supplies. The added benefit of using them for documentation and MAR documentation and reviewing charts and reviewing labs and things of that nature is kind of an added side bonus. So they're supposed to be bringing a couple of different device types for us to check out and see what we think, to test them. And then once I know more, if we actually are going to end up going with one of those products and getting a handful of them, obviously there will be independent training that'll take place with how to use them. But if you've gone through the end user training or the super user training, the way those phones functions is not much different from some of the things that you've learned about Meditech in one of those training classes. It can pretty much do all the same things, just compact in the size of a cell phone. So more to come on if we're going to end up using those devices or not. So we're supposed to be scoping them out. They're sending a couple samples, I believe, by next week, so we can test them and see which ones we like, and then move forwards with a decision on them. So, and then once that comes down the pike, then I'll share more with you guys on what that's potentially going to look like.
Are we getting any time in the classroom? Like
Yes.
hands-on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is kind of just an update slide. If you haven't gotten MedPower training done, make sure you take an opportunity to knock it out. Yes, it's boring. Yes, it is lengthy, but there is good content on there. And it will show you the basics of navigation through Meditech as a system, how to find things. You'll start getting an idea of some of the, little areas that you can get into and different settings that you can change and kind of some of the inner workings behind the system. In addition to the MedPower training, any hands-on training that you're able to attend, we're also going to be having what are called tip sheets, probably have about 11 different tip sheets that, step 1 through step 42, 37, what have you, walks you through, so you need to enter an order for a new medication, step 1 through step 15. You need to admit a patient and complete, their admission assessment. And as you're going through, you notice that one of the assessments that you need on the patient's missing, and you need to add one. Step 1 through 14, how to do that. So we'll have those tip sheets ready as well to roll out for you guys. Since we're talking about education, training, etc., couple things that HR needs right now. So there are a handful of folks that have BLS and ACLS that are either expired or expiring soon. Sign up with the HR team, complete the online portion, come in, get your check off knocked off. I have to do mine. So mine's coming up due, so I have to knock mine out. It's about right around 6-ish hours of online time between BLS and ACLS. And then the actual checkoff, I want to say, is like less than 15 minutes. It's pretty quick. They have updated the dummy that we use on the machine, so it does work. It does work a little bit better. We were running into some problems with that a few months ago, so that's been since fixed. And on the days that you come in for checkoff, if you've never used the machine before, try and come on a weekday during normal business hours as much as possible. That way I can get it set up for you. It's actually pretty simple, but that way I can show you how to set it up. And then that way you can get checked off on it. In addition to certs that are going to expiration or coming up on expiration, we also have fast health training. How much time did that take you? The fast health,
What?
the online training that you did. How much time was that?
Oh, the one we just got?
Yep. That you just finished. 2 hours?
If that,
Okay.
it's all review, it's all,
You can access the fast health training via the hospital website from any computer. You do not have to be on site in the building in order to complete it. Keep in mind that some of these things I'm talking about, recertifying certifications, completing this fast health, and then we also have some folks that have some outstanding TB documentation. I believe I sent an email to those folks so they can get their TB documentation knocked out. I'm trying to think what other trainings that we have. I'm pretty sure it's just this Med Power and Meditech stuff, the fast health, and then if you have outdated or coming up to be outdated certifications for BLS, ACLS, these are all things that can make up any on-call hours that you may have missed throughout the week. So keep that in mind. If you're on call and you need to make up hours, completing these exams, completing these tests, updating your certifications are all of those things you get paid time for. So just bear that in mind. If you have not gotten a copy of, in fact, I'm just going to resend it out to everyone, the Fast Health. So we can get that knocked out. Any other training I need to talk about? I don't think so. I left this one on here just as a reinforcement. I've noticed significant improvement, and I would like to highlight every person on the team. Thank you for parking yourself down by your patients. I have been contacted by a handful of different team members that said, "Hey, we need more outlets." I'm got a work order placed to get more outlets added down the hallways for you guys. If there are, I want to say, on one hand, I want to say if there's specific spots that you guys would prefer to see those placed, that we should mark them ahead of time. But there's a lot of nuance behind that because depending on how the wires are run through the drop ceiling and the space that's available behind the drywall is also going to determine where we can place those. There's certain places that they just can't run Romex cable through because it comes in contact with other things that could potentially compromise it inside the wall itself. Not to mention they also have to update any diagrams and whatnot anytime they're adding in any new electrical. And that's for the plant ops team so they don't go drilling into the wall and, you know, short out some electrical, potentially cause a fire. So, but I do have a work order in so that way we can get more outlets added down the hallways. And I just wanted to thank you guys for sticking to this, you know, I get it. I want you guys to have fun. I want you to interact with each other, but there was way too much time being spent hanging out at the nurse's station. And it's a lot quieter in the department. It's a lot smoother of a day. Folks are down their hallways. They're able to respond to their patients quickly. I've noticed that I don't hear IV pumps beeping as frequently. So thank you. Keep it up. Don't let up the gas pedal on this, please. All right, that's it for my time. Anybody that has questions for me? And I'm gonna open up for people that are online.
Hey, Keenan.
Yes,
I just wanted, and this goes for everybody. I had a bad week last week. I just want to thank everyone who had a hand in taking care of me. You guys are fantastic. Day and night shift. And I just want to say thank you. And I will say thank you in a more physical way. And I don't mean that creepy. When I see you again, everyone.
Miss you.
thank you,
I miss
Amber.
all you guys too. Oh, thank you.
Miss you, Amber.
I'll be back Saturday, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks
Thank you.
for the warning.
Oh, you're welcome.
So for the aides, CNAs, PCTs, board clerks that are on the call, we will be doing our first CNA meeting after the conclusion of this meeting. So basically, once we call a wrap, then we can just jump right over and get started into the CNA meeting. So if you don't have the link for the CNA meeting, shoot me a text. That way I can get it over to you. And before we wrap, I do anybody with any questions about any of the content that we covered today. Oh, let's tell you guys. So Terry Forbes is going to be out. She ended up having a medical procedure. She's not in great shape. There was actually a potential for her to come back as a swing patient again. We're still working through that. She's not in good shape. So I encourage you, if you've worked with Terry for a while, if you've been worried about her, reach out to her, shoot her a text message, give her a phone call. She needs some encouragement right now. She really wants to come back here for part of her care again. So just shoot her some words of encouragement, give her a phone call, let her know that we're thinking about her. I did end up getting a chance to talk to her a little bit 2 days ago, and at that time she had let me know she was going to be trying to come back down here for swing services. So in the meantime, that also means that I do not have anyone working on chart audits. I did take an opportunity to work with Jerry Thomas at the beginning of the week and showed her some of the ins and outs of how to do chart audits. We were only able to work on regular chart audits. We didn't get into working on our swing bed chart audits, and we are behind to the month of July currently. Jerry was able to knock out the month of June. With swing bed audits, we are significantly behind. I want to say 6-7 months. So if you are going to be placed on call, And chart audits is something that you could see yourself doing. Whether it's day shift or night shift, I would be happy to sit down and show you the ropes with how to do chart audits. Within about 2 days, Jerry was able to go from knocking out like 5, 6 charts in the day. She did 15 yesterday, so she's getting the flow down. And if we've got a handful of folks working on these, usually folks go back and they work on that kind of ICU computer that's stuck in the corner there. We can get these caught up pretty quickly. It's a solid for about 30 charts, 30 to 40 charts. It's a solid day of work. You could fill a 12-hour shift with doing chart audits, definitely. I mean, it's not very mentally stimulating. It can be potentially very boring. If you do decide to come and work on them, I don't have a problem with you chunking it out. Hey, I'm going to knock out 5 chart audits and then I'm going to get up and take a walk. Take 5 minutes, get up, take a walk, go outside, move my legs around, reshuffle my brain, then come back and hit 5 more. That's totally valid approach. But key thing to remember, if you are here working on those, the expectation is that you're knocking a chunk of them out. I don't want to have anybody here working on chart audits and they take an entire 12-hour day and only get 1 done. That's not justifiable. So if you're interested in learning how to do chart audits, just let me know. Amber, I'll write your name down on the list. Shoot me a text, give me a call, shoot me an email, put something in the chat right now. And I will be happy to teach you how to do chart audits. And it's a surefire way to lock down some hours. So, alrighty, that's all I got. If anybody doesn't have any questions, we're going to jump over to our CNA call.
Be on that audit list.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Did you have a name on there?
Mhm.